product overview presentation. My name is Zach Brandt, the Director of Business Development with CSI, and Doug Morris, the President and Founder of CSI, is going to be going over iEmail today with you guys. If you do have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them in and we'll address them at the Q&A session at the end. The presentations are designed for people that own the product, but if you don't, feel free to still stay on and learn about iEmail. Other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug.
Thanks, Zach. Once again, I am Doug Morris, CSI, and we're going to get going today. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, and I know your time is really valuable, so we're going to move as quick as possible. As Zach said, any questions you might have, go ahead and type them out as we're going along. We'll answer them at the end. And as always, we'll talk about ways to get additional support. If I show something and I went a little too fast and you're like, wow, I want to learn more about that, we'll tell you how to get that information. So you saw the slide because I accidentally advanced while Zach was talking. iEmail came out in 2006, and we've got over 450 organizations using it today. From that version 1 all the way to our current version today, 2.5.6, iEmail has been enhanced based on your requests. There are things that we come up with on our own, but for the most part, they've been great suggestions from these 450 organizations, which include most of you. And so I kind of want to say thank you. We couldn't have done it without you. It's huge that we have such a great community that we work with, and they provide this. One of the reasons we actually do these webinars is I was at a client, and they have a couple of our products, and they were asking some questions about some stuff they needed to do. And I said, well, you can do that with iEmail, or you could do that with iMerge. And I realized that they had not upgraded in a long time, and I realized that we had added a lot of features to the product. So this is a give back to our clients, you, if you will, to say, hey, we've added a lot of great stuff. You can take advantage of it by upgrading it. We're going to show you some things. I'm hoping you learned something about iEmail that you didn't know it could do. There's a lot of little nuggets buried in there, and so this is for you guys. So our agenda today is a day in the life of an iEmail user. We're going to talk about how we see iEmail used by many organizations. We're going to cover some new stuff that you'll see during the demos and go over how you can enable those cool features. Talk a little bit about what's around the corner. And then if you saw something you liked and you realize you're not on the latest version, we're going to tell you how to get it. We're going to help you with installing it. And if you get stuck, we're going to tell you how to get help. And then, of course, as Zach said, we're going to do some Q&A after the fact. So let's get right into this. I just got a call from the venue for our outing, and we've got to push the outing back an hour. We've got an event coming up next week, and you know what? It's in San Antonio, Texas. And if you've ever been in San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo in August, it's not cool. It's hot. And turns out we've got to push the start time back because we're gonna melt our attendees, and that's just not good for business. So we got to notify everyone who's already registered. And we probably should also let the education committee know that we've changed the time, and please don't ever schedule an Alamo tour at 5:30 p.m. in August. So one of the things I'm a little worried about is what about an attendee showing up early and melting and then being mad at us for not letting them know. So let's make sure we save a copy of the email on the attendee's record in IMIS, so that if someone back at headquarters gets the nasty call from the attendee saying, I'm melting, help me, they can say, you know, it looks like Doug Morris actually sent you an email, or the manager sent you an email. So we want some proof. And then really our tagline these days with iEmail is let's do it and let's do it fast. You're in Outlook. You need to get this knocked out. You've got stuff to do. You're a busy person. So let's get going, right? So here I am in Outlook. I'm going to send a new email. I'm going to jump right over to my IMIS icon. I'm going to jump to my events. There's my San Antonio conference. Let's find the Alamo tour. Good news, we only have 7 people signed up so far because iEmail is not a mass emailing system. If I had 1,000 people signed up for this tour, I'd probably want to use Informs or RealMagnet or the communication suite to blast that out. So registrants, let's go ahead and send this to everyone, and let's not share their email address, so I'm going to blind carbon copy them. Like I said, we want to send this to the committee as well because they need to know that we've changed the start time, so I'm going to select the entire committee. Notice we've added a select all button on most of these screens. If you didn't want to highlight or do a control A, there is a select all that has recently appeared, and I'll just send it to the committee. And the minute I hit save, I'm sitting back in Outlook. iEmail is done. There's nothing that iEmail is doing. So I can go out here and say Alamo tour, oh boy, tour now at, let's just say 6:30 p.m. We have changed the start time to 6:30 p.m. Bring water, something like that. If I hit send, this is going to go out just like a regular email, but I'm going to send and insert this email as an activity on everyone's record in IMUS, okay? So send and insert. It has identified everyone in the email based on their email address. If there was another person I wanted to add, I could hit find. If I wanted to remove certain people, I could do that as well and hit remove. Let's look at the message that's going out. Okay, not a whole lot there. And then let's look at the activity detail. You know, one of the cool things we can do with iEmail version 2 now is I can change the type of activity being sent. This is actually going to be an email, a regular email, if you will. So I'm going to put that in there. We've got the subject line in there, the text, who it was sent by, the actual IMUS user, and the date and time it's going out. So I'm changing this, and I'm going to save this as an email activity type. I hit save. 15 emails were put in IMUS. If we wanted to go and look at any of those, we could just jump right over if you knew who you sent it to, which I do, fortunately. And I'm going to go Davis B. I saw him out there. And then we can go out here and look at, there's the email that was sent. You can see I've demoed this before. So nice, it's sent out. The beauty of this is today is July 7th, both here, the UK, and Australia and Canada. So our US date form works great for today's demo. So there we go. That's it. That's, you know, that's a quick way to, you know, use iEmail to quickly let everyone know about a change in a venue for a function and copy a committee. In fact, emailing a committee was one of the first reasons we wrote iEmail. So let's look at another example. Zach just sent in his resume. He had to send this resume in because he wants to be on a committee, and that was required. So I'm going to save that in IMUS, and then I'm going to make a task for myself to call him. And I'm going to make that task actually in IMUS, and I'm going to synchronize it with Outlook. And I'm also going to put it on my calendar, but I'm going to drive all of this from IMUS, not Outlook, and then I'm going to send it up there. So we're going to do it, and we're going to do it fast. We're going to go back. This is Zach. Zach does forget that he should not be sending me his resume, but that's okay. And so here I am. Here's his resume, and I'm going to go up to iEmail, and I'm going to say insert that into IMUS, please. And when I hit insert activity, it's identified Zach based on his email. Once again, if he had sent it from, say, his Gmail account, I could go out here and find his record in IMUS. The message is pretty straightforward. And the activity detail is out here. In this case, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to say this is an electronic resume activity type. All right? So there we go. I've changed that. And notice I've got the ability to select a department down here. I've made this activity type so that I can lock it down to a given department. I'm going to make it the membership department. This is a user-defined field that I've decided to add, and I'm just trying to show you that not only can I select a different activity type, I can have lookup tables as well, and so I can further define this email as it goes into IMUS. I hit save. It's now in IMUS. We can go out here. I can go and find Zach's record. And I can look out here, and here's the resume because I made a special activity type. There's his resume, and I actually have the email attachment right there. Yep, I'm going to open it. Here it is. There's his resume. So it's right in IMUS. I've stored that attachment in IMUS. I don't have to worry about it being stuck in my email. Everyone at the organization can see it. So pretty powerful there. And like I said, there's some other things I want to do. While I'm on his record, I'm going to schedule a call. And so I'm going to go out here, and I'm going to say, go ahead and call Zach. Call regarding committee appointment. I'm going to assign it to someone, and because each person logs into iEmail, I'm going to assign it to myself in this case, and I'm going to follow up tomorrow. That's where our dates get a little messed up, and I'm going to hit save. And that's great. I've made myself an Outlook task, but let's also make an Outlook appointment, if you will. So over to the appointments, and I'm going to add a new activity here, and we call them appointments, and it's spelled wrong because there was nothing, so call Zach. And we're going to say call regarding appointment, see tasks in Outlook, something like that. I'm going to assign it to myself in this case. Again, I could assign it to anybody I work with as well, which is a lot more fun. We're going to do it at 10 a.m. tomorrow. The call is going to be pretty quick, about 15 minutes. And better give me a reminder about 15 minutes at a time. So I have his resume in IMIS, and I've actually gone out here and scheduled a call, a task, if you will, and I've actually put it on my calendar. So how do we do that in Outlook? Well, that's easy. I'm still in Outlook, and I say, let's synchronize the tasks. And when I do that, say, show me the task in the next 7 days. There it is. Let's import that task. The beauty of this is I can mark that task complete in Outlook or IMIS, and it will mark it complete in the corresponding system. So I've made that task out there. It's sitting here in my Outlook task. So if you have an exec or something and they just hang out in Outlook all day long, you can actually be adding tasks to their Outlook. But let's go back here to iEmail and let's do the calendar. So I'm going to say import appointments. It's found it already, and I'm going to say import that, and it's been inserted into Outlook. And so now if I look at my calendar, you'll see there's the call for Zach right there. I've got the information, the phone, the email. I can put, see tasks in Outlook. There could be more stuff there. So really powerful. The tasks and the calendar feature aren't used by too many folks, but we want to make sure you're aware that they're out there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how we did this. First off, we had to rewrite iEmail a couple years ago. Version 2 came out, and really our goal was to allow hosted environments where your IMIS is in the cloud, but your Outlook is on your workstation or your laptop. And then we said, well, you know what, that's going to allow us to do other email clients, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And we said multiple activity types, like you saw, is huge. We want to put that in there as well. So we did multiple activity types. And we said people keep wanting to categorize emails, so we added lookup tables so that you can now do lookup tables. And you saw that where I selected the department. What's a hosted environment? Well, that's basically where we break iEmail into 3 components. A web service that goes on your IMIS application server, an I2A web service that allows you to use I2As in iEmail, and of course you need your Outlook client. All right. What does this look like? Well, your web services or your IMIS web service sitting up there in the cloud, and then this is you using iEmail on your lawn. I'm sorry, I'm not real good at finding pictures out there, but I wanted to show you don't need to be, all you need to be is connected to the internet to use iEmail. You don't have to be on your network or anything funny like that. So we can support that now with version 2. The multiple activity type support, you saw that where I was able to change the email activity type. There's changing to a letter, if you will, or a welcome email or an electronic resume. It ends up going into IMIS, kind of looking like this. As you saw, where I'm changing that. And you can go and set all of this up, or we'll talk about how. We added the ability, right there. That's the ability to go and I'm using a user-defined table called department, and that's pretty cool. So I can break down that activity in IMIS. So for a department was my example. So you're like, oh my God, Doug, that's so awesome. How did you do that? Well, once again, this is for our customers, so I want to show you how I did it. This isn't stuff we do in a demo for iEmail. We just show you the other side, how easy it is to use. But really, I want you as a client of ours to see how to be able to do this. So I went to Customers, Activity Types, and I can either edit an existing activity or create a new one. In this case, I created a new one, as you can see. I made the email welcome, if you will. And I sort of modeled it a little bit after the email activity. So I went to the email activity in IMIS, and then I said, okay, I know what fields are where, and I filled it all out. And then you see down here in UF3, I actually called it department. All right. The next thing I had to do was make any required lookup tables that I want. And so in that case, I tell you how to do that. You just jump into Customers, Setup Tables, Lookup Validation. You drop down to New, create a table. In this case, it's the my activity type, email welcome, /department. And the department comes from the fact that I called this field department right there. You have 3. So email welcome /department. And that allowed me to do this. So now I've made my lookup table. So IMUS is ready for the activity. It has a lookup on it and everything. The next thing I need to do is I've got to configure iEmail for the new activity type. So from the address book screen, you click on Options, System Setup, choose Activity Type Setup button, and then add that activity type. You can see it right there. And so if you're curious how I got in there, we'll show you that real quick. New, IMUS, Options, System Setup, and it was right there, Activity Type Setup. So that's how I got in there. Oops, back to my PowerPoint. And that I got in there. Once I did that, I selected that activity type, and then I went and I set it up in iEmail, and that allowed me to map all of the fields. And if you look at what we have out there already for email, you'll see how it's done. It's pretty straightforward. It's also in the manual. One last step, because iEmail is sitting up in the cloud, you need to do something called recycle the application pool. So in order to do that, same thing, Options, Web System Setup, Recycle Application. And it looks like that. So all of this is in the manual, but I'll show it to you again. New, IMUS, Options, Web System Setup, Recycle Application. We are recording this, so if you do want to review back, you'll be able to see it. Okay? So that's why we're doing this. All right, so that was in order to get the multiple activity types out there. The last step is let your users know. Go ahead and email them and say, hey, when you're saving a resume in IMUS now, we've created a new activity type called vResume. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other cool options that are behind the scenes. Same thing you saw me do from System Setup, which is also available from the Insert Activity window. You saw me go into that System Setup. Once you're in there, we have a whole bunch of interesting features in here. And I think it's important to cover these because these are where we've added a lot of little switches and whatnot. We want you to be aware of them. The first thing you should know is that you can turn off any of the available search options in IMUS, from the main search screen to the ad hoc search to committees, events ad hoc, views, and query architect. So for instance, if you're trying to get your users away from using ad hocs, you can turn off the ad hoc tab, okay? However, maybe you are not ready to let go of ad hocs and you still like them. You can go and give yourself an access keyword in IMUS called IEM_ad hoc, and then the ad hoc tab will work for you and only you. Anybody that has that access keyword will be able to get to that tab, but all the regular users will not see the ad hoc. So you can turn off parts of iEmail that you don't want people using and or grant it to just certain people.
So Doug, why does it have an asterisk next to the iEmail search access keyword?
Good one, Zach. So note that search, that's the latest thing we added. You're not going to believe this, but people wanted to turn off the main search ability for iEmail because that sort of allows them to search the whole database. So in this client's case, they actually only use IQA, and they have permissions on those IQAs, so an end user can only get to the IQAs they want. So we even allow you to turn off the main search window in iEmail. Thanks, Zach.
No problem.
How about controlling the committees? You can do that as well. So you can go in there and click on the committee selection, and then you can go and hide certain committees. So this way your staff can't be emailing a certain committee. In this case, I'm hiding the board because I really don't want my staff telling them how bad of a job I'm doing, right? In fact, I'll try and keep the board secret from them, right? So you can do fun things like that. Views are very powerful as well. If you click on views, you can make your own view or use one of the ones out there. A great example of a custom view is maybe your active membership is a very complex formula. It's certain member types. It's they have to belong to a committee. They have to do all these things, and it ends up there's only about 38 of them, but it's very complex. So you can actually have a view out there. Of course, you can do this with an IQA as well, but a view would allow you to automatically filter those results. When you create a view, you need to tell what fields will show in iEmail, and you do need to tell iEmail what field contains the email address. So That can be very powerful as well if you're trying to simplify your coworkers' experience. I said a couple times that iEmail is not a mass emailing tool. Out of the box, it will limit the number of email addresses you can drop onto the 2 to 200, CC to 200, and DCC to 200. Feel free to adjust these to taste. Ultimately, your SMTP server, which could be Exchange, it could be Office 365, it could be Gmail, is going to have a limit. I know that the Office 365, I believe a person cannot send more than 10,000 emails a day. And so this is just how many emails are going to be in one email. It's not going to control the daily. We have clients that use iEmail to send out 5,000 emails at once. iEmail is actually not doing the sending. Outlook is. So please remember that this is just controlling how many records can be on the actual email. You could go and add more if you wanted to. We can't control it once you're in Outlook ready to send the message. So we recommend you do this. The other cool thing you can do is you can control how the email looks in IMIS. So what you can see here is, in this case, I'm saying email, and that would look like this when I'm inserting it. Last, first, there. Full name, there. And you could even do first name and last name. So you can control the format that the email is appearing in Outlook. So you can flavor that to taste as well. Not that you would eat it. But anyway, one more thing in the welcome email, I didn't go to that, but I have a category field turned on. The category field works just a little different than the user-defined ones because it was the first thing we allowed, and it existed in iEmail 1 as well. So if you want to enable the category so that I could go and actually further categorize my email from the category and not that department field, you go into iEmail, and that's set up, and you enable product code. When you do that, make sure you have the category defined on your activity type, and then, of course, add a lookup table. In this case, once again, iEmail welcome category, and I can now further categorize my emails. So you saw me do it with department. That was a user-defined field. You can also do it with this category field. So enable product code is category. The reason that's different is that's actually the product code field in IMIS. So I wanted to show you that. Don't forget you can set the route path for your queries. In this case, I set it to events, and now I can actually just go. So if I was using iEmail for events, they're all right in here. I don't have to drill into where all my IQAs are. So we recommend you set the route path for all of those. One thing I forgot to show you when I inserted Zach's email is his email actually said my resume. You can go out there and change the activity that's being inserted into IMIS. That basically means that when you set up that activity in IMIS, you chose allow user edit. If you have that switch on, when you are inserting that email via iEmail, so when I'm out here and I say let's go ahead and insert activity, right here I can go out here and change what's going into IMIS so it looks like that. So very powerful to go and adjust anything in here that you might need to do. If you don't want your users doing that, all you have to do is not have that box checked in activity. So what else did we do? Well, Outlook 2013 now has been supported for a couple years. 64-bit versions took a little while. That one came out with version 2, so we had to do a rewrite. We've upgraded iEmail for version 20. So if you are on version 1 still and you're heading to IMIS 20, you're going to need to upgrade to version 2. And then here's a little tidbit. You don't have to have IMIS on your workstation. So say you do a lot of emailing from your laptop that you always take home, but you really don't use IMIS, or you're using the staff view, the new staff view in 20. That's totally fine. You do not need to install IMIS on your workstation. You can just install iEmail. It will connect to your web service, and life will be good. So I want to dispel the myth that you need to have IMIS on your workstation in order to use iEmail. So catch your breath. What are we working on? First thing is Office 365 web client integration. So the idea is we hope to show this in the US at Discovery in October, And what we're going to show, hopefully, there is the ability to be using Outlook Web Access and fire up iEmail right from there. But please remember, you can still use Office 365. We use Office 365 here at CSI. You can use Gmail. You can use any mail client you want. I'm sorry, use any mail service you want. But today, you still have to be using Outlook. That's the key. You got to have Outlook. The demo you just saw today, this is all connecting to a Gmail account. At CSI, we're using Office 365. But as long as you're in the Outlook client, iEmail works just fine. So you saw something that was really cool, and you want to find out what version you're on. Well, if you go to Help About iEmail, right there, you're going to see your version. Now, I'm going to show you something. Notice here that I have my iEmail version 2.5.6 and my server version 2.5.3. Those two versions, the only thing that needs to match between your server version and your iEmail client version is that middle number has to match. Actually, the first two numbers do need to match. We should fix that. But in this case, if my server version said 2.3.0, I could install all the way up to 2.3.10 as my client. What happens is, as we add features, sometimes we can add them just to the client, but sometimes they require a server version update. Server versions take a little more time, and so we want to allow you to not have to always update the server version. So unless we update the server version, you can keep putting on the new client. You don't have to do a full server reinstall. When the server does change, though, you'll see this middle number change. And if I go and install my iEmail client 2.5.6, it has to connect to a server version that is 2.5 point something. That's a little confusing. We've thought about removing this from our discussion with you guys, but it's really something we want you to be aware of. You can't go and grab the latest version of iEmail if it doesn't match what you're running on your server. So fire away questions if that didn't make sense. And if you're ready, let's go ahead and talk about how to get the latest version. We have a partnership with ASI. They are the distributor of iEmail. So you go to imus.com, you click on Releases, and enter your credentials. Or you can enter your credentials first and then click on Releases, right? Your choice. So you click on Releases, enter credentials, or enter credentials and then click on Releases. Your choice. Get into Releases. Go down to Third-Party Products. Click on iEmail. And there you can see the latest version or go to the previous archive releases. And then we put the release notes out there as well. So, hey, wow, it's 2.5. I'm on 2.3. Is it worth it to me? Well, go ahead and review the release notes, and they will tell you what's in what we've added since 2.3 into 2.5. So click on that, decide if it's worth it, and if you're ready, you can go ahead and upgrade. An upgrade that includes the server release looks like this. The first thing I do is I install the Web Services Deployment Tool on my application server. I then run that, and I deploy the Web Service Deployment Tool. This is the IQA one. You want to do that one first. So I do the IQA Web Services Deployment Tool, run it, and update it. Then I install the Web Services Deployment Tool, and I run that, and that upgrades the web service. Once I've done this, any of my clients aren't going to work until I do this until I do the Outlook add-in. To do the Outlook add-in, we're going to cover that in a minute. It's very easy. That part's simple. So don't forget, you can also put an SSL cert on your iEmail web service so that all the information is over in secure communication. Heads up, the server is not something for an end user. It does require IT assistance. You're going to need to be on your server. You're going to kind of need to know what you're doing. There's two important documents, but one of them is broken. How often do you see this in a webinar where we say, don't read the README? Zach and I were working through testing this all last night, making sure we're all ready for our demo, and we noticed the README is out of date, and so we're going to get that upgraded on ASI's site, so ignore the README. But do look at the user guide. We have a version 2 user guide out there, and it has installation instructions And more importantly, if you're like me and don't read installation instructions, it has incredible troubleshooting steps. So really what we're looking for there is if you run into an issue, I bet we have it documented in our troubleshooting steps. The troubleshooting steps were created by customers saying, help, I'm stuck. We work through the issue, we add it to our user guide. So there's installation instructions and troubleshooting steps as well as how to use iEmail. When you get down to the client, that's pretty straightforward. The main thing is to make sure Outlook is closed. You're going to right mouse click on the iEmail client setup and run as administrator. It's going to automatically detect what version of Outlook you have and install the appropriate iEmail client. That's what it looks like. And I'm right mouse clicking and running as admin, which is going to be real important, especially if you're putting this on a terminal server if you want it to be on for everyone. Please don't go into the Outlook 32-bit or 64-bit folders. We're going to probably clean those up. We used to have all these steps where you had to figure out what version of Outlook you're on, and that was our #1 source of challenges by people trying to install iEmail. So we've made it now, all you have to do is run the iEmail client setup. It will detect your version of Outlook, and it will automatically install the appropriate version of iEmail. The very first client we rolled this out to, what happened was he ran it, and it said we're going to install the 32-bit version of iEmail because you have Outlook 32-bit. So 32-bit version of iEmail to Outlook 32-bit, and he went, I don't have a 32-bit Outlook, I have a 64-bit. And he went into Outlook 64-bit, and he ran the installer, and iEmail didn't work. And so he submitted an issue, and I said, well, you're using the wrong version of Outlook. I don't know how that could happen. I'm sorry, the wrong version of iEmail. I don't know how that could happen because it automatically detects what version you have. And he said, oh, I ignored that. I thought it was wrong, so I chose a different version. So we may not even tell you what version of Outlook you have in a future release because in our case, we were telling you a little bit too much, and the client said, I disagree with what you've decided and circumvented. But long story short, iEmail client setup is all you need. Run that, and it will take care of the client. You may also need a new license key. If you're on version 1 and going to version 2, there is a new license key required, and ASI delivers those license keys. So you'll email ASI orders at abbsol.com and say, hey, I want to upgrade to iEmail version 2, and they will send you a new license key for that. But if you get stuck, not on the license key side, please email CSI. But not until you've read the troubleshooting steps within the user guide, because we have a full-time QA and documentation person at CSI. She takes her work very serious, and she gets very hurt when people do not read the user guide or the manual, and all the steps are in there. There's our support email address. You would go ahead and email support, and this is really important. Include as much information as you can. First and foremost, screenshots are huge. They're 1,000,000 words. Give us a screenshot of the issue. Tell us as much as you can. What version of the software are you using? It's iEmail 2.5.3. What version of IMIS? It's IMIS 15.1.3. It's Windows 2003. It's SQL 2005. My workstation is Windows 7. And then how did you get to that error? If I showed you all the emails we get from people that say my iEmail doesn't work, we can't help you there. Because what's going to happen is your support request is queued up. And within 2 days, we're going to look at it. And if you are sending us something that says my iEmail is broken, and we have to go back and ask for all of these things like screenshot versions, it's just going to delay you getting support. So give us as much information. We're going to respond within 2 days. Today, we're closer to 1 on the response time. And that's business days in Chicago, just a heads up. And so, you know, it's about 1, but if we get a flood, it heads up to 2. So, but we will normally do that. If you're in a real bind, submit the issue with all the documentation, then feel free to call us and say, help, please, I'm really stuck. I've just shut down iEmail for my entire organization, and I need help. Because what happens is people get really dependent on this. So, you saw this today, you got some ideas, or you use iEmail, you got some ideas. Just email us at support@csinc.com if you have some suggestions for enhancements. That's how the product got to where it is today. So please, let us know any ideas you have. We are having more events like this for all of our products. If you go to csiinc.com/webinars, you'll see them all there. We've had previous ones. If you want to see the other ones we've done, they're also out there on the webinar area. If you want to show your coworkers some of this stuff, you can go to the iEmail page on our website, and it's all the information as well as some demos. And then, of course, this webinar is going to be recorded, and that will be up on our website. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys and see if you have any questions.
So looks like the first question is, iEmail, basically an application that is customizing Outlook to work with IMAS. What's the best way to define iEmail's purpose?
The best way to define iEmail's purpose, and now I'm regretting, we used to have 2 slides. We used to have a couple slides in here that really documented why we created iEmail. Here's why we did it. First off, we want to keep the member's email in one and only one location, and that's IMAS. We don't want it in your Active Directory because now we have a sync issue. And so the purpose of iEmail is to quickly email someone in your one of your members or non-members, someone in your IMAS database from Outlook. We believe people spend a lot of time in Outlook, and we want them to quickly email an individual, a committee. You saw me do an event registration as well. And so the purpose of iEmail is to quickly email one or more individuals from Outlook using IMAS as a data source. And then, of course, to possibly save that email in IMAS, including sent and received emails. So I hope that helps. We used to have that in the slideshow, but we took it out, and now maybe we'll add it back. That was a good question.
Darnell, do you have a question? I see your hand's raised. So if you want to type it in.
Don't forget, if we don't answer any questions or you think of one after the fact, feel free. You can email me as well, but if you, there's my email address. Support@csiinc.com is also another great one. You could actually email both, and then I will see it. We have a full ticketing system here, so everything goes into a queue. The idea of emailing support@csiinc.com is it's not lost. So don't hesitate to email me and copy support. Okay, can you also save the response to the email back to IMAS? Of course I can. So anything that I want, any email in my inbox, I can insert right into IMAS. Another interesting thing you can do is if you are sending emails from Outlook and you don't want to insert them, and at the end of the day you want to decide which emails to insert, you can, of course, insert emails from your sent email. So you can go out here and find any sent email and select even multiple ones and say insert activity. So you can insert both sent from here as well as anything in your inbox. So if it's responded to, it's going to end up in your inbox, and you can insert that as an activity as well.
Another question is, will you get a copy of this presentation? Yes, so this is being recorded, and it will be up on our website later today, so you can access it at csiinc.com/webinars. If you need an actual physical copy of the PowerPoint presentation, feel free to shoot sales@csiinc.com an email, and we can get you that as well. Here's another question. Where are the emails saved when in IMAS?
They're saved in 2 locations. They're saved in the activity table, and they're saved in the activity attached table if there happens to be an attachment on the email.
Looks like that might be all the questions that we have.
Once again, if you think of another one, feel free to email us, and we will cover them. I really appreciate all of your time today. I hope you found it worthwhile. I think a survey goes out. If you think it was worthwhile, do that. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you all at the Discovery Conference this fall. Thanks so much.